Guys, we're back with another Method Monday. Every single Monday, I'm bringing to you all the methods you need in order to improve your size, strength, power, and performance. Don't forget to check out the Bromley Barbell Apparel collaboration merch on the Barbell Apparel store. Link is in the description. So let's get into the Wave and Ratchet sets. This is something I saw Christian Thibodeau write about quite a bit on T Nation. It's also something I saw pop up in the Olympic weightlifting corners of the internet, and I'll talk about why it's more important for movements like that than anything else, and then we'll see how we can tweak it to get what we want out of it in our static movements. So Wave and Ratchet sets are a form of loading. There's a loading progression. To be clear, this is going to be done within a single workout. This is not week to week. This is all the total number of sets in one workout, and it can actually accumulate into quite a bit of work. So the idea behind a Wave and Ratchet set, I've talked a lot about post-activation potentiation, but it's just a unique way to arrange the work, to structure how you jump from set to set so that you are more fresh, more primed for your heaviest sets. And in some cases, you can kind of trick yourself into liberating a bit more force, into using a bit more aggression, putting more effort into the bar than you otherwise would have been able to. Some of it's psychological, some of it is actually neurological, actually getting your nervous system to open up and allow more motor units to be recruited. So waves are going to follow this wave structure. We've seen this before. When you think of how you run waves in something like a 5-3-1 where you're building up over several weeks, it's the same idea. It just happens all at once within the workout. The idea is going from a 3 to a 2 to a 1 and then repeating the whole thing just a little bit heavier. Now you don't have to do the 3-2-1 scheme. There's other schemes. For more of a hypertrophy lean, I've seen people utilize higher rep schemes. I don't know that you're best suited in utilizing higher reps for this. I don't know anybody that's done that successfully, because this whole thing does hinge on utilizing post-activation potentiation as a means of getting a little bit more out of your work. You can utilize heavier weights. You're conditioning your nervous system to be more forceful, to be more explosive. And when you're using, let's say, a 7-5-3 scheme as opposed to a 3-2-1, you're going to be a little too fatigued from those higher reps. So it's kind of the worst of both worlds. So I'm not sure I would recommend that. But for power production, for strength in the moment, for getting yourself to handle the heaviest loads with the most confidence, this absolutely does the trick. So with the 3-2-1 split, the idea is to get your foot in the water. Something like 80% is a pretty good starting point. That's a pretty easy set of 3, going up to 85%, pretty easy double, 90%, pretty easy token single. You recycle the whole thing just a bit heavier. So I have you in this example going up just 2.5%. You run through that over 3 rounds. You can go through more rounds, but you are going to find that those later rounds, you do start to fatigue a little bit more. So the closer you get to 100%, if it took you 4 rounds to get there, you're not likely to really hit a PR there. Now, this is best suited for things where the nervous system is a primary focus. So you're looking at either the power lifts or an Olympic lift. Some type of static lift is what you want to do. We have used stuff like this with success with some strongman implements, things that have more of a technical cap on them, things that have coordination involved, especially where you're inclined to have that coordination fall apart as the weight feels heavy. So if any of you have ever tried to do a log press, I actually used this with great success with my wife when Laura was learning how to log press, because she could do like 200 pounds on a barbell, but she'd get to 130 on a log. It would feel so awkward. She wouldn't know how to maneuver. So by working up, getting her acclimated to the weight, then having her drop back down, when you go for those later triples after the single, everything feels light. You can stay in the pocket. You get more confident because you're cycling through multiple reps. And that sensation of the weight being light and the speed with which you ram the weight to lockout on each set gives you more confidence as you climb up again. And she would actually, I think there was one session where she hit a PR on her 4th round log pressing going into this. Same thing with something like a circus dumbbell. Same thing, maybe if there's like a deadlift implement you're not used to, maybe if you're trying to foster strength in a squat variation that you're not used to, where there is that bit of technical variability that's kind of holding you back, this is a great way to build confidence with those heavier weights. Now, the reason that we saw this in Olympic weightlifting more than anything is because Olympic weightlifting, very explosive. You're not going to fatigue yourself quite as much because there isn't grinding in it. Every set that you do, it feels like, okay, if I just get a little more aggressive, or okay, if I'm just a little more technical, if I just hold position a little bit better, that's going to be the difference between success and lack of success. And when you can do these little tricks to kind of make those subsequent sets feel better before you ramp up, it's an easy way to reinforce those good habits and approach them with a ton of confidence. I would hesitate to use this on something like deadlifts because you're going to fatigue too much set to set. The rate of fatigue as you climb up this ladder is going to outpace whatever minute technical changes you could make. I would imagine squatting as a better use case with novice or maybe some intermediate lifters that still find squats a little bit daunting and start to whiff and change their technique as the weight gets a little bit heavier. It's a great way to build confidence with that. I found a lot of success in pressing movements, both overhead and benching. I could also see application if you're like a high school coach, or let's say you deal with a lot of young athletes that you're trying to get to really send it in a clean or a snatch. This is a great way to get athletes really confident with getting those positions down. Now going into the ratchet sets. The ratchet sets, it's a similar idea. You are changing the rep scheme. The only difference is we have more of a step loading progression here. Again, this is all in the same workout. So instead of doing one set and then ascending up, you're going to do kind of a stutter. You're going to do a warm-up single, and then you're going to wait. You're going to rest adequately long enough to be fresh. And at the same weight, you're going to bang off a triple. And then you're going to add weight. You're going to repeat. Now, this does a couple things. One, it does sneak in a little bit of volume. I think it's a matter of principle that every new touch, the first rep of every new set, is a little more impactful than any additional rep on a set you're already in the middle of. I think it's harder to take the weight out of the rack. I think it's harder to go from a dead stop in the case of a deadlift. I think so much more effort goes into that first rep that it just carries with it a little something extra. So that first touch, not only are you getting another first rep, which is the big one, but you're also getting a practice touch that sets you up for the next one. So you go into the rep set with quite a bit more confidence. Now, this doesn't sound like a lot, but trust me, when you're used to just climbing set by set by set, taking a little bit more time to do that first single before you commit to going into that big rep set, it makes a huge difference. Now, I do like something like this for deadlifts, especially because it's so easy to get in your own head. If you get a little out of position on that first rep when you are going for a big rep set, getting into the pocket just makes such a big difference. And you can hit that single, rest, take a couple minutes, feel 100%, and then go in, and the weight just feels so much better the second time around. You're not pre-exhausting yourself because you're not starting with higher reps. So that single really is just a practice single, get your nervous system kicked off. And if you are practicing something like compensatory acceleration, that speed is going to transfer so much. You're going to prime your nervous system to recruit more motor units. You're going to be surprised how that first rep feels the next time you go into it. Similarly, when you are doing like just repeating singles with the same weight, you'll notice that you get a few sets in and those singles start to feel better. They start to fly better. So especially something going from a dead stop like the deadlift, I think that's absolutely huge. But it's the same principle. That first rep of each subsequent set with the same weight, it just goes off so much better. And I can't emphasize enough how important that confidence is when you are conditioning your nervous system to put out as much work as possible. Now, these aren't something you want to live and die by. These are cool tricks to utilize at dedicated parts of your training, 4 to 6 weeks long, when you're specifically focused on mastering technique with a movement. I would especially recommend it for something you're a little unfamiliar with. If there's a cue that you're struggling with and you're trying to push the weight on that movement, give yourself a dedicated block. Use this strategy in order to figure out the movement, in order to feel tight, secure in the pocket, and efficient. And when you come out of something like this, not only will you be used to all of these reps at these more strength-specific ranges, but the added confidence you'll have will set you up perfectly for a dedicated strength block where you're doing more traditional work and you're getting to those higher percentages when you're a bit more fresh. Also, these percentages are just examples. Be really careful with sticking to the spirit of what this is supposed to do. Remember, skill, neurological development, confidence. That means every single thing you do should be crispy. If you're getting to the first wave or the second wave and you're already starting to grind, you know that you picked weight that's a bit too heavy. You don't want to stick that out because you'll just gas yourself out. And by the time you get into the big wave, you will have already done the heavy work. You will have already gassed yourself out. So the important thing is accruing the greatest number of really crisp, really dialed in reps. And if you can select the weight appropriately and you can commit to dialing in that technique across these strategies, you're going to come out the other side just a much better lifter, a much more explosive and forceful lifter. So for those of you interested in doing this, I don't recommend just jumping right in. I recommend using this on a secondary or tertiary movement, maybe on an alternate day. Get a sense for how it works, for how it feels, and for what it does. And what you can do is pick a movement that you're a little unsure about, maybe something you've been trying to get into, but it's always been a little too daunting, seemed a little too complex, and apply one of these strategies to it and get a feel for how it increases your ability to get that purchase on that movement, and for how you clean it up every set, for how it feels more efficient. And then in the future, you can keep this in your back pocket when you are going through a phase where you do need to refine technique and get those numbers up. So that's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Until next time, this is Bromley. I'll see you.